You all seem to absolutely love my ultimate cool tone lip guide. So it got me thinking, what else can I do that's going to be an ultimate guide video, just everything in one area that's really going to be helpful for you, because I love when you find these videos helpful, so it saves you time and money. I'll be categorizing this video by drugstore, sort of mid-range slash high-end, luxury foundations, and then also a powder foundation category. There's going to be no skin tints because that would make the video so long, so if you want a separate video on skin tints, let me know. Also, if you have any other ideas for these ultimate guide type videos where I just review everything I own in one video, for sure let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe as well. But let's go ahead and get started in the drugstore foundations. I will have all the foundations linked below as well with my favorite shades, so if you are a similar skin tone to me, that should also be of help to you. So let's go ahead and start with this one here, which is the Neutrogena Matte CC Cream. I have separate reviews on a lot of these also, so I will have them linked next to the foundations. This one I do really like. It's like a nice creamy BB cream, CC cream, sorry, I don't really know the difference. It has a lot of coverage, which I was not expecting. The reason I don't use this more is because of the shade. This is the shade Shell 1, which, as you can tell in the bottle, is just so peachy. So I'll definitely have to see if I can find a better shade of this. Seems to happen to me with a lot of these formulas. It's like, I'll like them, but there won't be a shade. So I'll keep that in mind with the reviews as well. So this one, really good drugstore pick if you can find a shade that works for you. The wear is also really nice as well. Of course, I'm very much a stickler for foundation wear. If it doesn't wear well, I'm not gonna like it. It's really important to me, and this one does wear well. And the finish on this one, I would say it's a medium coverage, could totally be built up to full coverage, and has a nice satiny finish. It's not too matte, but it's not super dewy either. And it also has a slightly thicker texture to it, so it's not completely weightless. You can kind of tell you have makeup on, but I still really enjoy it. Next is the Catrice True Skin Hydrating Foundation. This is a nice liquidy traditional foundation formula. Has hyaluronic acid. This one actually is a nice shade, still a little bit dark for me, but I feel like they have a pretty decent range. This is the shade 004 Neutral. This one is really nice. Like I mentioned, it's a pretty traditional feeling foundation where it's not like super emollient feeling. It's nice and lightweight. It dries down. If you do set it with powder, you get even more wear out of it. I feel like for the drugstore, this feels like really luxury, like even the bottle, and it's a really great performing formula as well. Medium to fuller coverage, but I would say it kind of stays in that medium range. And the finish is pretty satin as well. It doesn't lean too dewy, and definitely not super matte either. Next up we have the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte Foundation. I don't know why I bought this. I think I was just like really frustrated with the wear times of foundations, and I was like, maybe I just need a really matte formula. I personally just don't love super matte finishes like this. This one just feels like really thick and seems to just sit on top of my skin. Not really good for texture. It's really well reviewed on like Amazon and stuff, but I also just didn't love the shade 99 Porcelain. It was just too warm, and I don't know, I just really didn't like the feeling of this on my skin. It just felt too makeup-y. We also have the Revlon Skin Caring Foundation, the Illuminance, I believe is how you say it. This has squalane and hyaluronic acid, so another skincare based formula. This is the shade 105, which is actually too light for me, so I would definitely give this a thumbs up with the fair end of the shade range. I end up mixing two shades, but this one is nice and fair. It also has a nice like neutrally slightly warmer tone, which is quite nice. While the pump glass bottle, this is a thin, sort of lighter coverage formula, like light medium coverage. Definitely has more of a dewy skin like finish. Feels really lightweight. I've come to realize that I really love a lightweight, like liquidy foundation that doesn't feel like foundation, and this is one of my favorites from the drugstore because of those sort of attributes. It's just a really nice quality formula. I have another one here from Revlon. I believe they still sell this one. This is the Candid Photoready Natural Finish Anti-Pollution Foundation. This is 120, which is a little bit dark for me, but this one is definitely thicker than that other version that I mentioned. Has more of like a creamy texture, but still feels actually really nice and lightweight on the face. I haven't worn this in so long, but when I was using it, I really liked it. You can sort of tell I've actually used quite a bit of it. So I'm gonna have to revisit this one, but I am pretty sure that this is a good one as well. I don't think I liked it as much as this one. This one is just thinner, so I really like that. This one has more coverage for sure. They both wear really well. Next is a pretty cult classic foundation. This is the Milani Conceal and Perfect 2-in-1 foundation. Is this the old packaging or the new packaging? I don't remember. But anyway, this is a very like medium to full coverage formula. I used to wear this a lot as a teenager and really liked it because it was like bulletproof. I feel like my skin has changed a little bit as I've gotten older, and I just like lighter things now. This is good. I also have tried it again and it didn't really wear as well on me now than it used to back then. So I don't know what happened with my skin, like it got oilier or something, but it just, I don't know, it doesn't wear as well as I remember it wearing. I do think they also updated the formula, so maybe that has something to do with it. But I don't feel like this is necessarily like worth as much hype as it gets. I think for my foundation taste, there's better options. But if you like really full coverage, it could be a good one to give a shot. And then for Colourpop, we have their Pretty Fresh Hyaluronic Hydrating Foundation. This comes in a pump bottle. This is the shade Fair 20N, but I feel like the N shades run pretty cool. Like you can kind of tell that definitely has a cool undertone leaning at least. So this is also a pretty traditional like foundation texture. It's thin and just applies really nicely. Definitely gives you like a lot of coverage, like medium to full coverage, but it feels nice and light and fresh. This is one of the foundations where it's like, it came out a while ago and I feel like no one talks about it anymore, but it's still a really good, solid foundation, especially for the price point. They do have tons of other shades, so I'm sure you could probably find one that works for you. So yeah, I would say this is a good one from Colourpop. From Flower Beauty, this is their Get Real Serum Foundation. I know they have another foundation that I think is more popular, but I haven't tried that yet because it does have a chemical SPF in it, which my skin does not like. This is their serum formula, which is very liquidy, as it says. It's a serum formula. I was really curious to see how this compares to sort of like the Ilia foundation or like the Maybelline serum foundation where they're a bit thinner. I honestly can't remember. I think this is pretty good. I'll have to try it again and update you in a future video, but I just can't remember what I thought of this. I do remember liking it quite a lot, but it does say something that I didn't love it enough to like use it every day. So probably just one of those like in between like meh foundations. I wasn't sure if I should consider this drugstore because it's sort of like higher end of drugstore, but I guess you can still find it in drugstores. So this is the Kiko Milano Full Coverage 2-in-1 Foundation and Concealer. Shade does not match me, so I just didn't use it. But when I did try it, it just felt really heavy and cakey, and I feel like I've heard good things about their base products, but this was like a hard pass for me. I just did not like it. Like, it has a lot of coverage, but the wear and feel was like really uncomfortable for me. Speaking of Maybelline foundations, we have the Super Stay 24 Hour Skin Tint. This is the shade, let me find it for you, 110, which is slightly dark for me, but I like the undertone of this. I could probably buy the lighter shade and mix them. This is a serum formula. You can sort of see from the bottle, it has a pearlescence within it, which looks so beautiful on the skin. I think this is a great drugstore foundation. It's really nice for sensitive skin as well because there's no like SPF or anything that irritates my skin personally, at least. I really like how thin this is. It does have that vitamin C in there. My one caveat with this is that it does not wear the best. Like, it's more of just like a casual throw on type of foundation for me. Like in the summer I went on vacation and I wore this a lot and it was really humid. Like, it still wears well. It just starts to bunch up a tiny bit if you want to wear it for probably more than like 8 hours. If you have drier skin, this might wear even better on you, but if you're more normal to oily like me, you would have to set this and just be aware that it's not the most long wearing thing, but it's a really pretty foundation. Also, by the way, should I try the L'Oreal tinted serum foundation? I've heard good things about that one, but haven't tried it yet. Let me know. Our last drugstore pick we have is the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop Full Coverage Foundation. I usually mix 2 shades of these. This one is nude, and I think I also have the pale shade. Pale works better if I were to just use one or the other, but this one I just need to deepen it like a tiny bit. That one is very fair. I think NYX has a great like super pale shade range. If you have like more neutral to yellow undertones, they don't run super pink, which I like. This foundation you've probably heard me talk about before. If you want something that's like full coverage and extremely long lasting, I think this is an amazing option. Also really good for sensitive skin. This can be finicky though. That's the warning I usually give with it. I like to apply it with a sponge, but sometimes it can like get a little bit patchy. I'd recommend just like doing your face all at once, because if you do it in sections and then if you like go over the section with more foundation before it's dry, it can sometimes get patchy. So can take a little bit of work in that area, but I think it's so worth it because it's just so full coverage, and it almost has this like, it's a more powdery matte finish, but it does not feel like a full coverage foundation. Like, it doesn't have a lot of weight to it, which I really like. It just feels super thin but wears like so long. It's amazing. Okay, drugstore foundations done. Let's move on to the mid-range slash high-end. I have the most here, so buckle up. Let's start with the Ilia True Skin Serum Foundation. I love their original formula. They changed it and I don't love it as much, but I do still think it's a really pretty foundation, and I especially love the shades that they have. They added some new shades, and this one, SF.25, is a really nice fair, like olivey type of shade. This is a super thin serum formula, leans more on that like oily serum versus like a gel serum. Like their original one was more gel-like. This one feels a little bit more oily. So my favorite way to use this is just to apply it with my hands, really make sure it's blended in, and then I'll usually add on a powder foundation for extra coverage because it doesn't give you the most coverage. But if you like really natural, lightweight, like good for your skin feeling foundations and makeup, I think this is still a classic and worth a shot. Even though I don't love it as much as the original, still pretty good. Next we have the Makeup by Mario Surreal Skin Foundation. This is the shade 1C, which is a good like depth match for me, but it is a too cool of an undertone. And I tried one that had more of like a neutral warm undertone, and that one didn't work either. So this is kind of regret. I wish I returned this one as well. I returned the other shade. I just, when something doesn't match me, I never use it, of course, because I just don't like the look of not a matching foundation. But anyway, formula wise, this is definitely like a thick foundation. Even if you apply a little bit, it has quite a thickness to it, which I think if you have dry skin, you might like. But if you don't like that feeling of a lot of makeup, this might not be the best option for you. I think this is like pretty good. I think it does wear quite well, and it looks really pretty on the skin as long as you use a nice light layer. Pretty decent foundation from Sephora. Is it like worth the full price? I don't know. Not like my absolute favorite. Did I mention the packaging? I think I did. I really like this packaging. I wish I had like a good shade in this, but I just don't. Next we have the Charlotte's Beautiful Skin Foundation. This one's the shade 1N, which is too dark for me. I think this is the lightest shade they own. Like, look at that. It's obviously just not that pale, which I hate about it. This is a very dewy foundation. I think it looks beautiful at first. It's not like super thin, has sort of like a medium consistency, comes in this little tube packaging. My problem with this is it doesn't wear the best if you have more normal to oily skin. It just gets so dewy by the end of the day. It doesn't necessarily break up a lot, it just gets really oily even if I set it well. So I think if you have drier skin, you might really like the emollient, like dewy feeling of this foundation. But for me, I don't grab it a lot because of the shade, and it doesn't wear the best on me. Next we have the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Foundation. This is a very unique formula. It comes with this little like squeezy applicator, like a little condiment. This is the shade 2G, really good shade range. Like this one's nice. It's like a fair warmer shade, but it's not too yellow or orange. I wish this didn't have a fragrance in it because I really like it. Definitely on the thicker side. It's really full coverage. Like, don't be fooled by the name Serum. Like, she's got coverage to it. Full coverage, really nice wearing formula. I don't grab it a ton just because it has a little bit of fragrance and I wish it was fragrance free. But other than that, like, pretty underrated foundation. I feel like it's a really good one. Let's talk about the Danessa Myricks Vision Cream Cover. So I'll compare it a little bit to the Yummy Skin one. This is the most full coverage product in foundation that I've ever tried. This is the shade N01, super light. They also have a white, tons of shades. This is like a pro level foundation. Like, if you just need the ultimate full coverage, this is it. This does feel a little bit heavy on the skin. I think it does actually wear quite well. I will usually use these if I'm doing like more creative looks, like things that I post on my Instagram. I'm almost always using something like that just gives you a super blank canvas. So it's really nice for more creative looks, or if you're a makeup artist, like you could just use like a tiny bit of this and it covers so far. I don't think it's like the most everyday makeup friendly foundation. That's why I like to call it like a more of a pro product. Unless you love super full coverage, you might like this. But yeah, compared to this, these are both really full coverage, but this is like such an intense level of pigment concentration in this product. It's crazy. And this one is a little bit dialed down, more of like a user-friendly everyday version of the Vision Cream Cover. Here we have the Exa High Fidelity Semi-Satin Foundation, shade Catrice 530. I think this one is a pretty good match. This is one of those more like oily feeling foundations on the skin, but it does wear really nicely. I wore this on like a hike one time and it still looked really good. I don't use this a lot because it does irritate my skin. I think it maybe is something to do with the essential oils in it. It just doesn't like, my skin just gets a little bit angry. It's not like full-on allergic reaction, but it does feel a little bit irritated. If you don't have as sensitive skin, I think this one is quite nice. It's serumy. It gives you a nice medium coverage, definitely buildable. You could sheer it out as well. And I do like the little pump. Pretty good shade range as well, so I think this is a pretty solid option. Next, let's talk about this KVD Good Apple Skin Perfecting Foundation Balm. Man, they probably made a lot of money when this went viral. This is the shade Light 008, which is definitely a little bit dark for me, but I think it has a nice undertone. This is a rich cream foundation. So if you haven't caught on to the pattern of what I like so far, I like lightweight feeling foundations, so this is kind of the opposite of what I go for an everyday formula. This is one, again, I use for more like super dramatic looks if I'm just doing something creatively. It gives you full coverage. It just is too emollient and it does not wear well. Like, just look at it. It's kind of just like grease paint. If you know you like cream foundations and you want something super full coverage, you might end up liking this if you have drier skin, but I would just say overall, yeah, it's just like a yucky feeling foundation. I do not like it. Next, let's talk about the Bare Minerals Bare Pro Skin Perfecting Matte Liquid Foundation. This is a really long wearing foundation. This is the shade Fair 10 Neutral. I have not found a good Bare Minerals shade until this one because I feel like they run, the cool shades are really peachy and the warm shades are really like yellow orange. So the neutrals are still quite warm. This one I think is the best match that I've found. It has a little bit of sunscreen in there. This one is a nice like medium fuller coverage. This is the new formula. They updated it. I really love the old formula. I haven't tried this one yet, so I will have to try it and see if it's as good as the old one because that one was really, really good. Extremely long wearing, more of like a natural matte finish, and it just is like one of those bulletproof foundations, so we'll have to see. Next we have this LYS Triple Fix Serum Foundation. This is the shade LG6. Love this packaging. This is a serum formula but still has really good medium coverage, so it's not quite as light as say the Ilia foundation. This has a nice pump to it. I really like this like triangular bottle. Just feels really nice in the hand. I actually really like this formula. What's kind of disappointing is I bought a lot of foundations when I was self-tanning. So there's so many formulas that I do really like, but I don't get to use a lot because they're just not my shade, which kind of sucks. This is one I would repurchase though because it's so pretty and it wears really well. It's like if you like really traditional feeling foundations and you wanted to try this brand, I think this one is good. It has more of that dewiness, but it still wears well. It's so good and it looks really pretty. Next, the Tarte Amazonian Clay 16-Hour Full Coverage Foundation in the shade Light Golden. This one is too dark for me. This is one of those like, it's a moussey formula if you've ever tried it. It's really thick and moussey. This used to be one of my favorites in high school as well. I used to like just die for full coverage. It feels a little bit heavy, so this is the updated formula. The original formula in the brown tube, I remember it being amazing. It was bomb as heck, and then they updated it and this just slips around on the face. Like it literally just creases and then like it's just like gone. It's just bunched up and it just feels gross. Don't like it. This one's kind of like a sleeper hit. This is the Lawless Conceal the Deal Longwear Full Coverage Foundation. This is the shade Seashell. Slightly too cool for me. I could probably grab another shade. It comes in a little shaker bottle. It is on the thinner side. I feel like if you like the Kosas Tinted Face Oil, you might like this because it's sort of like a more coverage. It's not as oily as that though. That's kind of not a great comparison. Maybe forget I said that. But I just think it's a really pretty like it just looks so smooth and even. Again, it feels lightweight, which I love, and it wears well. So this one I don't pull out a ton, probably because the shade doesn't match, but when I'm looking at all of these, I'm like, this is like a really solid pick out of all these formulas. Next is the Estee Lauder Double Wear. Con with this, I have yet to find a shade that matches me. This is 1W1 Bone. I think they added more shades possibly. This can be built up to be full coverage, but it's still really thin and lightweight, which I love, of course. So if you're looking for something that's a very long wearing, well performing, like maybe more special occasion type of foundation, I think you would love this one. I wouldn't really wear this every day. I feel like it's just, I don't know, maybe not the best for your skin. Just in my experience, it starts to just feel like it's clogging my pores a little bit. But as like an occasional foundation, I think this one is really good. I use this in my pale skin wedding makeup tutorial if you wanted to see how it looks on the skin. Next we have the Kosas Revealer Skin Improving Foundation. This is not the shade I usually use because I used that one up and now it's gone. This, I love this foundation. It has SPF in it. It is more of a thicker formula, but I really like how fresh it feels and looks on the skin. It's a really skin-like finish. More medium coverage, can be built up, also sheared out. I always like to mention this is thicker, so if you apply it with your hands, it gives you more of like a lightweight feel. Great with a sponge as well. I wouldn't really recommend it with a brush. It can just, if you use too much, it can end up being a little bit heavy, and it doesn't wear like extremely well, like totally bulletproof. I do get a little bit oily throughout the day wearing this, but I just love the skin finish and feel of this. It's really comfortable. They also have a great shade for me. I will link the one I used below. I just tried their new BB Burst Gel Cream, which I did not like at all. I think this regular foundation is so much better. If you just use a light layer, you're honestly gonna get a similar vibe. This is a slightly newer foundation, the Rose Inc Soft Light Skin Smoothing Liquid Foundation. This has a like traditional silicone type feel to it. So it really sort of glides onto the skin and is nice and smoothing. I love this packaging. Every time I like use it, reach for it, it feels really luxurious. It is a high-end product, but I feel like they did a really nice job with this packaging and the pump. This is the shade 2N, which is described as a fair olive shade. This is just slightly too like cool toned for me. You can tell it does have that like little bit of green in it. I have to mix it with another shade, which kind of sucks. I wish it just matched me well. Recently, it does seem a lot of brands are adding olive undertones into their ranges, but the new problem I've encountered is that they're either too cool of an olive or too warm of an olive, and I feel like I'm sort of on that like neutral coolish side, not really super warm, not really super cool. I wish they had a perfect shade for me, but I really like this one. I am wearing it today, by the way. I mixed this one with the other shade. I forget the name of it. Slightly darker and has some more warmth to it, so I mixed those to make sort of my perfect shade. Since this has a more silicone smoothing feel, if you're really oily and you feel like foundations may slip around on your skin, I wouldn't recommend this one. But if you have like normal to drier skin, I think this one is really pretty. I mean, even on me, I feel like normal combo skin. As long as I set this well, I think it's a really pretty foundation that looks really nice and smooth. I usually like water-based formulas, and this is the one like more silicone one that I like. Moving on to the Juice Beauty Phyto Pigments Flawless Serum Foundation. This one is super liquidy. It's like a water formula, so it's kind of weird that it's in a pump because it kind of like squirts out. Not the best applicator for the formula. This is a very light foundation, but it does have like a lot of pigment within it. It's a really like bizarre formula to describe. I did really enjoy this a couple years ago. I still do like it. I don't think it wears the best compared to some other options that I have, but I do like how thin and liquidy it is. Again, one of those I just can't find a good shade in. Unfortunately, this one is too cool tone for me, but really interesting. I'll have to revisit this and give you some more detailed thoughts on it. Next we have the Smashbox Always On Skin Balancing Foundation. This says hyaluronic acid and adaptogens. Pretty classic bottle. Comes with a pump. This is the shade F10W, which I think is actually a good match. It could be a hair lighter, but it is really good just on its own. I actually love this foundation, which was so surprising. I don't think I tried many Smashbox base formulas before this. It really reminds me of the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop, sort of dialed back a little bit, so it's more wearable for the everyday, and it's also a little bit less finicky than the NYX one, but it still has more of like a matte satiny finish, still looks like skin. It says that it's skin balancing. I do notice it wears really well on my combo skin. It keeps oil at bay, but it also doesn't really like accentuate dryness. Just one of those really comfortable thin formulas that I love. And then we have the Merit Beauty Stick Foundation. This is one of the darker shades I use as like a bronzer. Sometimes it is really warm. One of those foundations I still haven't found a good shade in. I feel like they're either too peachy or not light enough. This is a very emollient creamy foundation, which is marketed as like a more minimal makeup, just like swipe on and blend. Definitely works better with less product. I think it's actually a really pretty cream foundation, for sure on the more dewy side. I think if you have dry skin, this might be more suited for you. If you're normal to oily like me, just be aware that it doesn't wear the best, but just as like on its own, it's quite pretty. I do wish I had a good shade in it though. Next up, if you've been watching my channel for a while and you know that my old favorite foundation obsession was the Bite Beauty Changemaker foundation, which they sadly no longer make that foundation or really makeup in general. If you love that foundation off of my recommendation, these two are like my new favorite foundations at the moment that I think are similar compared to that one. Let's start with a very new foundation. This is the About Face Skin Focus Foundation. This is the shade F2 Olive, which is slightly dark for me, but I love that they have an olive tone at least. I might buy a lighter shade just to mix with this. I have tried mixing in a white mixer with this, but it changed the formula too much and I just love it so much on its own. It's one of those that is so thin, it wears extremely well. Like there is no bunching up, there's no breaking up, it's just so seamless and looks like skin. I love this so much. I can like feel the innovation and thought that they put into this of like, it's a foundation that doesn't feel like foundation or look like foundation. So I love that. It is more light coverage. You could totally build it up to more medium. So really beautiful one from About Face. And then my other favorite that I can't stop using, the MAC Studio Radiance Serum Powered Foundation. I was really excited about this because a lot of MAC foundations have like SPF in them. This one does not, so it's more sensitive skin friendly. This is more dewy. This is the shade NC5, which is actually too light for me. Slightly though. I love the undertone though, so I honestly just still wear it with a slightly darker powder and it works out fine. This is one that is thin, but it like sticks to your face in a nice way to make it wear so well. It does have that radiance, so it looks like skin. It's the prettiest finish without being too dewy. Yeah, so beautiful. I love both of these. Like, I don't know. This one I feel like does wear a little bit better, but I like the shade in this one. For both, just beautiful. Okay, we're on to our last two categories. First, we have luxury formulas. So these are pricey, pricey, pricey little foundations. Let's talk about the Westman Atelier Stick Foundation. I actually love this. I would say this is my favorite cream foundation that I've ever tried. Because I usually don't like creams, I like liquidy, watery foundations, but this sits so beautifully on the skin. Again, I can't use this one because it's too dark for me. I wish I had it in a lighter shade. This is the shade number 3, or is that 4? This is the shade number 3 if you were curious. Definitely too dark. Packaging, beautiful. It's one of those products that you need so little of and you could just swipe it on and it looks so natural. Definitely on like the dewier side, but it wears really well, which I love. More medium coverage, you could build it up a little bit more. It's just so pretty. It is a luxury formula, so it's more pricey, but I think you get the luxury feel with the performance of it, and I like when those line up, right? I don't want to pay a luxury price and have like a bad foundation, so I think they did really good with this. Next up is the Surratt Dewdrop Foundation. This is quite interesting packaging. You sort of screw the top off and then push down on this little domed part on the bottom, which can be a little bit difficult. So I don't love that that can be, you know, hard for some people to use the product. I wish it was a little more user-friendly, but I do really like this formula. It's another really thin but more like medium coverage formula that looks so beautiful. It does feel as luxurious as it's priced as, so I think this one is really nice, wears well, pretty good. Next we have two foundations from Chantecaille. First is the Future Skin Oil-Free Gel Foundation. Just because this has the word gel in it, I already knew I was gonna like it because I love those watery gel formulas. It has a little preserver on the top that you are supposed to keep. So this is super thin and very light coverage. It feels amazing on the skin. It's like so refreshing and not heavy at all. It does have quite light coverage though, so I'd only recommend this if you just want something like extremely natural. Like, it does not look like makeup, it truly looks like your skin. Another con is the shade. I just can't find a good shade within this brand that matches me. This one is a little bit too cool toned. It's the shade Aura. I've tried the other shade as well, which is a little bit too warm and dark. So it's just in limbo there. Even though I really, really like this formula, I don't get to use it a lot. And then we have the Chantecaille Future Skin Cushion. Also really like this. This feels a little bit stickier. Like, this one doesn't feel sticky. This just feels slightly tacky on the skin. But once you set it down, I think it's nice. So this comes with the little cushion formula. And then you use this little patter thing to apply it. I've just applied it with a sponge as well. It's really beautiful on the skin, has slightly more coverage than this one, which I like, and it does set down well and wear very well because it has that stickiness. It clings to your face and gives you that long wear. So between these two, if you like a little more coverage, I think you would like this one, but if you want that super lightweight, no makeup vibe, this one's really good. Okay, last but not least, we're finally there. We have powder foundations. Starting with some Bare Minerals, we have the original foundation. Fair 01, I think, is a pretty good match for me. I think this one is good. It's a classic for a reason. It can feel a little bit heavy if you use too much, or if you have like more oily skin, it sort of can, I don't know, create like a weird texture on your skin. It does have a slight sheen to it. I think they also have a matte formula, so just be aware of that. I think it's pretty good. This one I actually like a lot better from Bare Minerals though, which is their Bare Pro powder foundations. These things are long wearing as heck. Another one where I just can't find a great shade. This is Fair 15 neutral. Maybe they have a Fair 10 neutral, like the foundation, that will match me well. Like, why is this called neutral? That's like peachy orange, is it not? But anyway, this is super thin, really full coverage, lasts a long time, doesn't have a sheen in it like the original loose formula does. So I really like this just to add coverage or as like a touch-up powder. And then we have the Laura Geller Baked, Balance, and Brighten foundation. This is the shade Porcelain. This one's like a little bit too cool tone for me. This one is like, has quite a bit of shimmer in it, even more than the original Bare Minerals one. So this I don't like on its own because it can become so shimmery when you layer it up, but just as like a coverage booster, I think it's really nice and it does wear well. It doesn't get like too thick or cakey looking. Then we have this e.l.f. Camo Powder Foundation formula. I think this is like a dupe for the Bare Minerals one because it is very full coverage, still very thin. The shade is Fair 140W, which is slightly yellow for me. It packs a punch. She is full coverage, but wears really nicely and doesn't feel heavy feeling. And then we have the Well People Bio-Based Baked Foundation. This comes in different packaging now. The shade Fair Golden, which I think is a really good shade. This one doesn't have as much coverage as like those matte formulas I mentioned. It does have a little bit of sheen in it because it's a baked formula. I love how light baked formulas feel, and this one I do really like on top of foundations or as a setting powder. This really, really reminds me of the MAC Mineralized Skin Finish, which I used to love. Just like a little bit of a coverage boost. It has a slight glow to it. It's super pretty over foundations. Not something I'd wear on its own unless you like lighter coverage. I think this is a really pretty option. And then let's talk about the Ilima Pure foundations. First, starting with the pressed formula. This one, I forget the shade, but they do have an olive shade in the loose version of the foundation. This pressed one I really like. It doesn't have too much of a sheen to it, but it's also not like very matte. It's just a nice in between, like, it's called satin matte, which is exactly how I feel about it. It's such a pretty satin skin-like finish, especially for a powder. Loose version I really like as well. I like both of these. This one can feel a little bit thinner just because it's pressed. You usually end up using a little bit less product. I think both are great though. The olive shade in the loose powder foundation, by the way, I still find a little bit dark for me, but It's great that they have the olive undertones. These are great for sensitive skin as well if you're like allergic to a ton of ingredients. These are very simple. And then we have the One Size Turn Up the Base foundation. This I really like. I only have this one in white, so I haven't really like fully worn this on the face. Well, I actually have for Instagram post that I did. This I like. It is thinner, it's more matte, it performs really well. I love that they have a white shade. I think they have lots of good shades within this range. I think this applies it nicely with a brush. I think you can go a little bit overboard with it if you do too much, but it wears nicely, and I really like this packaging too. It's nice and easy to open. Last but not least, we have the Pure Powder Foundation. This is, let me grab my other one that did not break, thankfully. This is the 4-in-1 foundation. I have two shades. This one's LG2, that other one was LG6. LG2 is definitely a better match. They do have great shades in this. Like I said, this is a classic from them. It's thinner, has a matte formula, but still looks relatively natural. Quite similar to the Ilima Pure one. The pro of the Ilima Pure one is you get those olive undertone options, but this one is really nice as well. I usually don't wear powder foundations on their own. I like to put them on top of a liquid just to boost coverage. But I feel like if there was one that I was like, I just wear this one, it would be the Pure or the Ilima Pure one. Oh my gosh, my voice is shot. But I really hope you found this video helpful and enjoyable. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more videos that I do like this. And don't forget to let me know your recommendations next for these types of videos. Give this video a like if you did enjoy it, and I will see you in this next video here. I will link something fun that I think you'll enjoy. See you over there.